everyone, welcome to another episode of I've Been Playing. Today we're going to talk about Deathloop. Deathloop is the newest game from Arkane, who are behind the Dishonored series as well as the 2017 game Prey. And I'm gonna be honest, before I started playing this, I wasn't entirely clear on the concept. I mean, the basic premise, yes, you are reliving the same day over and over again. But story-wise, I wasn't really sure what I was getting myself into. Gameplay-wise, I did. It's still quite Dishonored in some ways, although also very different in other ways, and we'll get into that. Basically, the premise is that you wake up and you have forgotten at the start of the game why you're there and what you're doing, but you jump right back into the loop immediately, and Juliana is your main antagonist, at least at the very start. She keeps pestering you. Pestering sounds bad, but she keeps communicating with you over the radio, and you play as Colt, who's trying to end the loop that is happening on this island, whereas she wants to preserve it. So there are two different ways you can play this game, at least after you start. You have to start as Colt because that's how the story starts, but you can either try to break the loop as him, or if you want to do online play, you can try to break it as Juliana, which basically just means you invade other players' worlds and try to take out Colt before he can accomplish whatever he's doing at that place at that specific time. Also, there are a bunch of people called visionaries who I'm not really clear yet how they're related to breaking the loop exactly. It's just like they're major characters in the game, so you have to get rid of them, i.e. kill them, in order to break the loop properly. The problem with this is that there are 8 of them, I think it said, and there are only 4 time periods in the game. There's morning, noon, afternoon, and evening. So obviously you have to try to figure out ways to either catch them when they're together just generally, or force them together so you can kill more than one at a time, because you can't kill 8 people with 4 time segments, not normally anyway. So that's the idea behind the loop. The loop is an interesting thing, although gameplay-wise it doesn't feel that different from just, you know, dying and restarting, which is essentially what it is. Yes, I get that. But story-wise, it makes more sense, I suppose, but gameplay-wise, it doesn't really feel that different, if that makes sense. The main thing is that when each loop resets, if you haven't preserved your powers, and this is included in the slabs, which is the equivalent of, it's your supernatural powers. They're called slabs this time, instead of just supernatural abilities, I guess they would be called in Dishonored. You lose them. So, you know, if you've collected one, the way to collect them is to kill a visionary. Basically, you have to kill the visionaries a bunch of times, both to get these slabs in the first place so that you have your supernatural powers, and also so you can upgrade them, because the other things you can upgrade just generally with points. The slabs you have to upgrade by collecting them more than once. So these visionaries are basically gonna die, like, you know, at least 4 times. But you also lose all of your character upgrades or your weapon upgrades if you don't invest points in them. So it's important to collect this stuff called residuum, which you can find in objects around the world and in some enemies. When they die, they leave some behind. You have to collect that. That is your upgrade points. That allows you to upgrade stuff. And obviously the thing to upgrade or preserve first are the slabs, because you want those supernatural powers, because it makes the game, in theory, easier. So you want to make sure to have enough to upgrade those before anything else, and preserve those before anything else. So the loop of the gameplay, as it were, is basically doing that. Eventually, you will get to a point where, you know, you've collected enough information, because you get information from stuff around the world to figure out where visionaries are going to be, or how you can do things earlier on in the day to affect things later on in the day, so that, like I said, people end up in the same area of the world at the same time, so you can take out more than one at once. But you have to go around collecting clues to do that, and that, at first, that's kind of the main, I would say that's almost the main gameplay loop of the game, is getting that stuff, because once you get all that stuff, you have to kill the visionaries. And I imagine once you get to that point, hopefully you've upgraded everything, hopefully you know the 4 different areas you can choose to go well enough, and that kind of thing, you know, all the secret passageways, all the secrets, hopefully, of the areas, and you can take care of them. Now, I haven't gotten that far yet. I'm still trying to collect clues to figure out how to get people in one place at one time. I've found one, but there are still a few I need to investigate, as well as getting at least one more slab that I am having a heck of a time getting, and that brings me to some of the gameplay. Now, much as I love the Dishonored series, and Prey was also great, but it was the different things, which is why I'm comparing this more to Dishonored, because it has more in common with Dishonored than anything else. Much as I love the Dishonored games, I find it really hard to be fully sneaky in them, no matter how hard I try. And there's the thing where one enemy sees you once and they just lock onto your position, and then everyone in the world knows you're there, and it's basically impossible to reset yourself, because I find that they always find me. Somebody always finds me. I'm trying to run away, somebody else finds me. I'm just not very good at avoiding detection, I guess. I've never managed to do it. I've managed to finish them, but I've never managed to avoid detection completely. Like, somebody will see me at some point, whether they die after that or not. Someone will see me at some point. And I'm having that same problem here, which is part of the reason I can't get the last slab. Now, the last slab, somebody has it who has some kind of reactor weapon that as soon as you're in that compound, as soon as somebody in that compound sees you and she hears about it, she sets it off, and in like a minute, you have a minute basically at that point to kill her and get out, or get out, but I think it explodes the entire island, so even if you get out of the complex, it's not going to help you, and I haven't managed to do it. I got really close once. I got really close once. I was actually fighting her, and then the place exploded, and I was like, oh, you exploded in a nuclear explosion. Go back to the start of the day. So I'm having a heck of a time with that, because I can't avoid detection completely. You can kill people fast enough that I think they don't alert anybody, because I have managed to do that, but I just haven't managed to sneak in there. And granted, I wasn't using the one that grants me invisibility, which would probably be the smart thing to do, and that I haven't tried yet, but it's just frustrating. I do appreciate how quickly the enemies will lock onto you and follow you. I appreciate that, because they're actually like prescient and will actually investigate basically as soon as you stick an arm in their vision. They're like, what the heck was that? That's not supposed to be there. So I appreciate that from a world building and like just having smart NPC angle. But for me, playing, it's very frustrating, because I feel like maybe I'm just going too fast. That's generally my problem, because I do try to slow down a little bit, but at the same time, I don't have 3 hours to play one level of a game. I need to get through it. You know, I have other things going on. I have to do stuff. So it's still fun, in the same way that I find Dishonored still fun, but also frustrating. That's what I'm experiencing with Deathloop thus far. Generally though, gameplay-wise, I think they're rather similar. A lot of the powers are similar as well. There's a thing called, I honestly don't remember what it's called in this, but it's the equivalent of Shift. There's Nexus, which allows you to connect people together, and whatever happens to one person happens to the other person. You know, so they're similar. There's the invisibility one. There's a fourth one I collected, which I haven't really used and don't throwing people around. Carnesis. Haven't really used that one very much, because it just seems like a good way to get myself detected even more. And then the last one that I haven't collected is Havoc, which I think protects you from damage for a little while, or so. I don't know, I don't have it yet. I think the main thing that's different in this one is that there's no overall kind of morality system going on or anything, so you're more encouraged to experiment with playstyles, and there's not nearly as much as a judgment or a problem if you just go around killing people. Like, you kind of have to. So if you do get into a sticky situation and you're good enough, which is my problem, then you can just kind of gun your way through enemies, and you can hack turrets and stuff, which are a huge help, especially as, you know, they're kind of designed for in narrow areas. So you can use those to your advantage. You can hack, there's other stuff you can hack. You can hack stuff to distract enemies, which I've been trying to do, but there always seem to be at least two, so I kill one of them and then the other finds out that one of them's dead, and then it's just a problem. But there is some stuff in the environment you can use as well. But the whole point of the game is to experiment and find ways that will work to kill the visionaries and to get them where you want them to be and stuff like that. So there's less of a negative impact, I would say, on gameplay at just taking everybody out than in previous games, than even in Prey. So I'm enjoying it, you know. As I said, it can be a little frustrating at times. I think that's more on me than on the game in general, because I'm not good enough to blast my way through it, but I'm also not good enough to sneak through it, so I'm having a heck of a time doing somewhere in between, which is my general playstyle anyway. But it's fun, and I like the kind of time looping thing, and I'm interested to see why exactly, you know, Colt has decided to try to break the loop, because I'm not far enough in the story to know that. I assume that's something that's farther towards the end game that you find that out. and I'm excited to find out why. I think it's fun. It's an interesting story, and it's an interesting way to kind of explain the respawning that happens in so many games. Even if it doesn't feel, like I said, from a gameplay perspective, that different. But that's been my experience with Deathloop thus far. Let me know what you think of it down in the comments down below, whether you've played it or not, and what you think of the gameplay and the story. Let me know if you enjoyed this as well, and if you did, consider leaving a like and possibly subscribing. I do one of these every Monday, and I will see you next time.